Commander Hyunwoo wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crouched behind the rocky ridge overlooking Seoul. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cityscape, but his attention was fixed on the strange metallic object floating silently above the Han River. For 3 days now, this craft had been conducting what could only be described as surveillance operations over South Korea's capital. The vessel was unlike anything in Earth's military arsenal. Sleek and angular, it resembled a giant metallic insect with translucent panels running along its sides. No larger than a fighter jet, it moved with an eerie silence that defied physics as humans understood it. Through his high-powered scope, Hyunwoo could make out the silhouettes of its occupants, tall, spindly figures with elongated limbs and what appeared to be compound eyes that glittered like cut diamonds. "This is Ghost 1, he whispered into his encrypted radio. "Target is maintaining position over Sector 7. Still no hostile actions detected." The response crackled back immediately. "Copy that, Ghost 1. Continue observation. Do not engage unless fired upon." Inside the alien scout ship, Senior Observer Thekval's mandibles clicked rhythmically as he processed the data streaming across his bio-neural interface. The information painted a picture of what appeared to be another backwater world ripe for conquest. His compound eyes, each containing thousands of individual lenses, analyzed the sprawling urban landscape below with practiced efficiency. "Observe the primitive construction methods," Thekval communicated to his subordinate through bioelectrical pulses. "Crude concrete and metal structures, no energy shields, no atmospheric processors. This species has barely mastered basic metallurgy." Mordin, younger and less experienced, shifted nervously in his biopod. Something about this world felt different from their previous conquests. The settlements were massive, far larger than anything they had encountered before. "Senior Observer, the population density readings are unusual. These clusters contain millions of beings." Thekval's attention turned to the readings. Indeed, the numbers were staggering. But his species had encountered large populations before, usually packed into overcrowded hives due to resource scarcity. Typical of pre-spaceflight civilizations, he dismissed. Large populations concentrated around primitive resource centers. Agricultural societies always breed beyond their means. The alien commander's confidence stemmed from centuries of successful conquests. The hegemony had subjugated over 40 worlds using the same methodical approach: reconnaissance, assessment, overwhelming force. Never had they encountered significant resistance from species that hadn't achieved faster-than-light travel. Far below, Colonel Ji-hoon monitored the situation from a concealed command bunker buried deep beneath Namsun Tower. The facility, invisible to orbital scans, buzzed with activity as dozens of analysts tracked the alien vessel's movements. Captain Yoonji, his communications officer, coordinated with similar installations across the globe. "Sir, we're receiving similar reports from Tokyo, Beijing, and Washington," Yoonji reported, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Multiple scout craft conducting systematic surveillance of major population centers." Ji-hoon studied the tactical display showing the alien craft's flight patterns. "They're mapping our cities, counting our visible assets. Classic pre-invasion reconnaissance." He paused, considering their options. "Maintain communication silence. Let them see only what we want them to see." The decision to remain hidden wasn't born of fear, but of strategic wisdom. Humanity had learned hard lessons from its own history of warfare. Sometimes the greatest advantage came from being underestimated. Aboard the scout vessel, Thekval completed his analysis of Seoul and prepared to move to the next target. His sensors had detected approximately 12 military installations within the urban area, a modest defensive capability by galactic standards. The primitive aircraft he observed posed no threat to their superior technology. Ground-based weapons appeared to be chemical propellant systems, laughably inadequate against hegemony armor. "Set course for the island nation eastward," Thekval ordered. "Complete the reconnaissance grid as planned." The craft lifted silently from its position, its anti-gravity systems producing no visible exhaust or energy signature. Within minutes it was hovering over Tokyo Bay, beginning the same methodical survey process. In Tokyo, Major Kenji Nakamura watched the alien craft through his own set of instruments. Like his Korean counterpart, he maintained strict observation. Protocols. The alien visitors had no idea they were being watched by some of the most advanced military forces on Earth. As the scout ship continued its journey, Beijing, Mumbai, Moscow, London, New York, the same pattern repeated. Each time Tekval's confidence grew, Earth appeared to be defended by perhaps 5 million active military personnel scattered across the globe. Their technology was primitive, their defenses static, their organization fragmented into competing nation-states. Preliminary assessment complete, Tekval transmitted to the invasion fleet waiting at the edge of the solar system. Target world designated suitable for standard conquest protocols. Estimated resistance duration, minimal. Recommended force. Allocation, 50,000 troops, standard equipment loadout. But neither the aliens nor the humans fully grasped what they were truly facing. The visitors saw only the surface of human civilization, the visible military bases, the obvious defensive positions, the standing armies. They couldn't detect the vast network of reserve forces, hidden installations and industrial capacity that lay dormant beneath the peaceful facade of human society. Similarly, humanity observed technologically superior beings capable of interstellar flight, but failed to recognize that these scouts represented a galactic empire that had never encountered serious resistance from a pre-spaceflight civilization. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge everything both species believed about warfare, technology, and the nature of civilization itself. Deep beneath the Korean demilitarized zone, Major Chung-ho sat surrounded by banks of sophisticated monitoring equipment that hummed quietly in the reinforced concrete bunker. The facility, built during the Cold War and continuously upgraded, now served as humanity's primary intelligence gathering point for the alien visitors. Rows of screens displayed intercepted communications, energy signatures, and movement patterns of the scout vessels that had been surveying Earth for over a week. "General Yu Jin, we have a breakthrough," Chung-ho announced into his secure headset. His fingers danced across the keyboard as streams of alien data flowed across his monitors. "We've cracked their basic communication protocols. They're using some form of bioelectrical transmission system." The response came immediately through his earpiece. "What are they saying, Major?" Chung-ho frowned as he studied the translated fragments appearing on his screen. "That's the interesting part, sir. Their language seems to lack certain concepts entirely. They keep misinterpreting our military structure." He paused, highlighting specific transmissions. "They don't understand terms like reserves or national service. It's like these concepts don't exist in their society." Aboard the lead scout vessel hovering over the Pacific Ocean, Mordin's bio-neural processors struggled with the human communications they had intercepted. The young scout's compound eyes flickered with confusion as he processed military transmissions from various Earth nations. Human military terminology contained references that made no sense within the framework of hegemony warfare. Senior observer. "Tekval," Mordin transmitted through bioelectrical pulses, "I am detecting anomalous references in their communication networks. They speak of something called reserve mobilization and veteran populations. The translation matrices cannot properly interpret these concepts." Tekval's mandibles clicked dismissively. In his species' rigid caste system, warriors were bred and trained from birth specifically for combat. Civilians performed their designated functions and never crossed into military roles. The idea that non-warriors could be trained for battle was as foreign to him as underwater breathing. "Primitive organizational confusion," he responded. "Pre-spaceflight. Species often have poorly defined military structures. Focus on counting their actual warrior castes, those stationed at obvious military installations." But Mordin's confusion deepened as he continued analyzing the intercepted data. References to something called a draft appeared frequently in human historical records. The concept seemed to involve temporarily converting civilians into soldiers during times of conflict. Such a system violated everything the hegemony understood about proper military organization. "This draft system," Mordin queried, his bioprocessors working overtime to make sense of the data, "appears to be a method of recruiting non-warriors for combat roles. Is this possible? Thekval's response carried undertones of superiority. Desperate measures by inferior civilizations. Untrained civilians forced into military service are worse than useless. They become liabilities. Factor them as negligible combat effectiveness, the Chi. Alien commanders' confidence was built on millennia of successful conquests. Every species the hegemony had encountered followed predictable patterns. Professional warrior castes defended their territories, while civilian populations cowered in fear. The idea that civilians could be trained as effective soldiers was simply inconceivable. Meanwhile, at Osan Air Base, Staff Sergeant Jinnah monitored the alien craft through advanced tracking systems hidden beneath seemingly ordinary hangars. The base appeared to house only a standard complement of fighter aircraft and support personnel. The aliens had no way of detecting the underground facilities that stretched for kilometers beneath the surface, housing equipment and personnel that could multiply the base's visible strength by a factor of 10. "Command, the alien vessel is conducting detailed scans of our equipment," Jinnah reported to her superior. "Should we activate the hardened positions, show them what we're really capable of?" General Yu Jin's voice crackled back through the encrypted channel. "Negative, Sergeant. Let them count what they can see on the surface. No point in revealing our true capabilities until necessary." The strategy was working perfectly. The aliens meticulously catalogued South Korea's visible military assets, approximately 600,000 active duty personnel, several hundred tanks and aircraft, and a handful of obvious military installations. They had no way of detecting the millions of trained reserves, the underground bunker networks, or the industrial capacity designed to arm an entire population in times of crisis. This same methodology was being applied globally. The scout vessels moved from nation to nation, counting standing armies, visible naval vessels, and obvious Air Force installations. Their sensors, designed to detect energy signatures and large metal objects, completely missed the vast networks of civilian infrastructure that could rapidly convert to military production. In the United States, they counted approximately 1.4 million active military personnel. They missed the 18 million veterans living as civilians. In Russia, they tallied 900,000 active soldiers, while overlooking the 2 million reserves. In China, their count of 2 million active personnel ignored the 8 million militia members trained for homeland defense. The aliens' final calculation showed Earth's total defensive capability at roughly 5 million active military personnel worldwide. They had no concept of the additional 200 million humans who had received military training but lived as civilians, or the 50 million who served in various reserve capacities. At a reserve training center in Busan, Lieutenant Nam Su received an encrypted message on his personal device. The message was simple: "Condition yellow, prepare for possible activation." Within minutes, similar messages were being sent to millions of people across the globe. High school teachers who had served in special forces, factory workers who were former tank crews, college students who had completed mandatory military service. The global communication network carried these messages to bus drivers who were former combat engineers, shop owners who had served as snipers, and office workers who had commanded artillery units. Earth's true military potential remained completely invisible to alien sensors, designed to detect only active military installations and obvious warrior castes. Thekval completed his global assessment with growing confidence. Earth appeared to be a typical pre-spaceflight world with predictable defensive capabilities. The invasion fleet would face minimal resistance from scattered military forces using primitive weapons. The conquest would be complete within days, adding another world to the hegemony's expanding empire. Neither species yet realized the fundamental error in their assumptions that would soon reshape both their destinies. Captain So Young rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the holographic display showing alien movement patterns across the Korean peninsula. For the past 18 hours, she had been analyzing surveillance data from the intelligence center, buried deep beneath the city of Daegu. The facility, disguised as a telecommunications building on the surface, housed some of Earth's most advanced tracking equipment. "Colonel Minho, I think I found something important," she called out, her voice echoing in the underground command center. The walls were lined with screens displaying real-time data from satellites, ground sensors, and human observers positioned across the globe. Colonel Min Ho approached her workstation, his boots clicking on the polished concrete floor. "What have you discovered, Captain?" So Young pointed to the three-dimensional map floating above her desk. Red lines traced the paths of alien scout vessels over the past 2 weeks. "Look at their scanning patterns, sir. They're only investigating surface-level installations. Every pass they make focuses on visible military bases, airports and naval facilities." She manipulated the display, highlighting areas where the alien craft had spent the most time. "They've scanned Osan Air Base 17 times, but they've never detected the underground command complex that extends 12 levels below ground. They catalogued our surface aircraft, but missed the hardened hangars built into the mountainside." Minho studied the patterns with growing interest. "They're using the same reconnaissance methods they probably use on primitive worlds. They assume what they can see represents our total capability." "Exactly, sir. They have no idea about the deep installations." So Young's fingers danced across her console, bringing up classified schematics. "Facility 7 Alpha beneath Mount Hala, the underground weapons depot in the Taebek Mountains, the submarine pens carved into the coastal cliffs. Their sensors haven't detected any of it. High above the Earth's atmosphere, aboard the primary scout vessel, junior analyst Veltar was experiencing his own moment of disturbing revelation. Unlike his superiors, Veltar had been assigned to study human information networks, their internet, communication systems, and digital archives. What he discovered there challenged everything the hegemony believed about pre-spaceflight civilizations. His bio-neural processors worked frantically to analyze the massive databases of human knowledge. References to something called a military-industrial complex appeared frequently in their records. The concept seemed to describe an entire civilization organized around the production of weapons and military equipment, even during times of peace. Veltar's compound eyes flickered as he processed historical manufacturing data. During what humans called World War II, the United States had converted civilian automobile factories to produce tanks and aircraft within months. Soviet factories that made tractors began churning out artillery pieces. Entire nations had transformed their economies into war machines almost overnight. "This cannot be accurate," Veltar muttered to himself, but the data was overwhelming. Human educational systems included mandatory physical fitness programs that looked suspiciously like military conditioning. Their entertainment media glorified warfare and combat. Even their sports seemed designed to develop skills useful in battle. "Commander Thekval," Veltar transmitted urgently through the bio-communication network, "I have discovered disturbing information about human military history. They reference previous conflicts where they mobilized tens of millions of combatants simultaneously. Perhaps we should reconsider our assessment." Thekval's response crackled with irritation. "Historical exaggeration, junior analyst. Primitive species often embellish their past conflicts to appear more formidable. Focus on their current military capabilities, not fictional accounts of ancient battles." But Veltar couldn't dismiss what he was seeing. The humans had documentation, photographs, and detailed records of conflicts that had involved entire continents. Something they called World War I had mobilized over 70 million military personnel. World War II had seen over 100 million humans under arms simultaneously. The scale was incomprehensible to a species that had never experienced warfare, beyond limited territorial disputes between specialized warrior castes. Veltar's people fought with professional armies numbering in the thousands, not the millions. Meanwhile, on the volcanic island of Jeju, Sergeant First Class Do Hyun completed his inspection of Installation Delta 9. The facility, built into an Mao, extinct lava tube and camouflaged by advanced stealth technology, was invisible to orbital scans. Its entrance was disguised as a tourist information center, complete with hiking maps and souvenir shops. Do Hyun sealed the massive blast doors behind him as he emerged from the underground complex. The installation contained enough weapons, ammunition, and equipment to arm an entire division. Rows of tanks sat in climate-controlled storage bays. Artillery pieces were wrapped in protective coverings. Small arms were stacked in quantities. That could equip a small army. Captain Heejin, "This is Facility Delta 9, he reported into his encrypted radio. "Monthly inspection complete. All systems operational. We can have full mobilization within 72 hours if needed." The response came immediately. "Understood, Sergeant. Maintain readiness status. Similar reports coming in from installations nationwide." Do-hyun smiled grimly as he walked toward his motorcycle, parked near the fake tourist center. The aliens had no idea that similar facilities were hidden across South Korea. Every mountain contained at least one underground bunker. Every major city had multiple hidden weapons depots. The countryside was dotted with camouflaged installations that could rapidly deploy defensive equipment. This pattern wasn't unique to Korea. Across the globe, nations maintained vast networks of hidden military infrastructure. Switzerland had bunkers built into every hillside. Finland had underground facilities that could house their entire air force. Even small nations like Singapore maintained defensive capabilities far beyond what their surface installations suggested. Veltar continued his deep analysis of human information networks, his concern growing with each discovery. Human manufacturing capacity was staggering. They produced more steel in a single year than most civilizations used in a century. Their transportation networks could move millions of people and vast quantities of equipment across continents within days. Most disturbing of all, human society seemed to treat warfare not as an aberration, but as a natural state, requiring constant preparation. They maintained massive weapons industries during peacetime. Their government stockpiled strategic materials. Their citizens received training in everything from basic first aid to urban combat tactics. "Senior observer," Veltar transmitted again, his bioelectrical pulses carrying undertones of anxiety. "Human society appears to be organized around the concept of total war. Their entire civilization seems designed for rapid military mobilization." Thekval's dismissive response came immediately. "Impossible, junior analyst. No civilization could maintain such a state of perpetual military readiness. It would be economically unsustainable. Continue your analysis, but do not allow primitive propaganda to cloud your judgment." But Veltar knew what he was seeing. Humanity wasn't just another pre-spaceflight civilization with a small warrior caste. They were something the hegemony had never encountered before, an entire species that had evolved their society around the assumption that the next war was always just around the corner. The revelation was terrifying, but Veltar knew his superiors would never believe it until it was too late. The morning of March 15th started like any other day for the people of South Korea, but it would become the day that changed everything for both humans and aliens. At exactly 0600 hours, sirens began wailing across the peninsula, not in alarm but as the signal for what military planners called Exercise Thunder Dragon, a massive training drill designed to test the nation's rapid mobilization capabilities. Major Taemin stood in the underground Joint Command Center beneath Seoul, surrounded by dozens of glowing screens and communication equipment that hummed with activity. The facility, carved from solid rock 50 meters below the surface, could withstand a direct nuclear strike and coordinate military operations across the entire Pacific region. "All units, this is Command Center Alpha," he spoke into his headset. Microphone. "Exercise Thunder Dragon is now active. Repeat, this is a drill. Begin Phase 1 mobilization." Captain Sun Hee, seated at the master communications console, watched as status reports flooded in from across the country. "Sir, we have confirmation from all sectors. Reserve units are activating according to schedule. High above them, hovering at 30,000 feet, the alien scout vessel registered the first signs of what would become their worst nightmare." Thekval's compound eyes dilated as his sensors detected massive energy signatures erupting across the landscape below. What had been a peaceful, seemingly defenseless peninsula was suddenly alive with military activity on a scale he had never witnessed. "What is happening down there?" he demanded, his bioelectrical pulses crackling with confusion and growing alarm. Mordin's younger eyes processed the incoming data faster than his senior officer. "Senior observer, I am detecting massive troop movements, but these signatures are coming from locations where our previous scans showed no military presence. Across the Korean countryside, The landscape itself seemed to transform. Hidden blast doors, camouflaged to look like natural rock formations, began sliding open across dozens of mountainsides. From these concealed entrances, streams of military vehicles emerged like ants from disturbed hills. Tanks, armored personnel carriers, mobile artillery units and supply trucks rolled out of installations that the aliens had never detected. At Camp Humphreys, what appeared to be a small American base suddenly revealed its true nature. Underground. Hangars opened, disgorging squadrons of fighter aircraft that had been invisible to orbital scans. The base's visible complement of aircraft tripled within minutes as previously hidden assets became operational. "Impossible," Thekval whispered, his mandibles clicking frantically as he tried to process what his sensors were telling him. "Our reconnaissance showed minimal military installations in this region." But the surprises were just beginning. Across South Korea, millions of civilians were receiving text messages on their phones. Teachers dismissed their classes early. Factory workers handed their shifts to supervisors. Office employees gathered their personal items and left their desks. Within hours, these seemingly ordinary citizens were reporting to mobilization centers, transforming from civilians into trained soldiers. At Busan Port, dock worker Kim Min-jun received his mobilization notice and smiled grimly. His co-workers knew him as a quiet man who unloaded cargo ships, but they had no idea he was a former Special Forces operator with 3 tours of duty in overseas conflicts. As he walked toward the harbor's hidden military facility, hundreds of other civilians joined him, men and women who had served in elite units before returning to civilian life. "This is insane," Mordin reported, his voice trembling with barely controlled panic. "Sensors are now detecting over 2 million active military personnel in this small region alone. Our previous intelligence indicated only 600,000 total military forces for the entire nation." Thekval's confidence, built over centuries of successful conquests, began to crumble as he watched the impossible unfold below. Reserve units were emerging from positions that had been completely invisible to their advanced sensors. Civilian infrastructure was rapidly converting to military logistics networks. Highways became military transport routes. Airports revealed hidden aircraft. Even shopping centers and schools were transforming into command posts and supply depots. "How could we have missed this?" he demanded, but his subordinates had no answers. The truth was terrifying in its simplicity. Human military doctrine had evolved through millennia of warfare against other humans. They had learned to hide their true capabilities, to blend military assets with civilian infrastructure, and to maintain vast reserves of trained personnel living ordinary lives until needed. Junior analyst Veltar, monitoring from the secondary scout vessel, had expanded his surveillance to cover the entire globe. What he discovered made the Korean revelation look small by comparison. The United States alone maintained nearly 20 million military veterans living as civilians, former soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who retained their training and could be recalled to service in times of crisis. "Senior observer," Veltar transmitted urgently. "Global analysis reveals similar patterns worldwide. China has over 50 million personnel with military training. Russia maintains reserves of 30 million. India, Pakistan, Israel, every major nation has vast hidden military capabilities. The alien invasion algorithms, designed to calculate conquest requirements based on visible military assets, began producing error messages as impossible numbers flooded their systems. Earth wasn't defended by the 5 million active soldiers they had counted. It was a fortress world where nearly 10% of the adult population had received military training. Lieutenant Colonel Jae Sung watched the alien vessel's increasingly erratic flight patterns from his mountain command post. The craft was weaving back and forth, its movements becoming more frantic as it tried to process the scope of what it was witnessing. "Sir, the alien craft is showing signs of distress," he reported to General Yu Jin over secure communications. "Should we reveal the full extent of our capabilities? Show them the nuclear arsenal, the submarine fleet, the space-based assets?" Yu Jin's response was measured and calm. "Negative, Colonel. Let them discover our true strength themselves. Sometimes The greatest victory comes from an enemy defeating themselves through their own assumptions. Aboard the scout vessel, Thekval's bio-neural processors were overheating as they tried to recalculate invasion requirements. The original plan had called for 50,000 troops to subdue Earth. Current estimates suggested they would need over 10 million soldiers, and even that number seemed grossly inadequate. The humans had revealed something that challenged every assumption the hegemony held about pre-spaceflight civilizations. This wasn't just a world with armies. It was a planet where the entire population could potentially become an army, supported by industrial capacity that could arm and equip hundreds of millions of combatants simultaneously. "Emergency transmission to invasion fleet," Thekval commanded, his voice carrying undertones of desperation. "Request immediate reassessment of target world capabilities. Initial projections were catastrophically incorrect. Human military potential exceeds our worst-case scenarios by factors we cannot calculate." The message raced through space toward the hegemony fleet, waiting at the edge of the solar system, carrying news that would shake their empire to its foundation. Earth wasn't just another conquest. It was a revelation that would force them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about warfare, civilization, and the nature of intelligent species. Below, the exercise continued with mechanical precision, unaware that it had just prevented an interstellar war through the simple act of showing who humanity really was. The final blow to alien confidence came during what humans casually called a peacekeeping deployment. Junior analyst Veltar had been monitoring global communications when he detected massive logistical movements beginning across the Pacific. What he witnessed next would haunt the hegemony for generations. The United States had committed to deploying 250,000 troops to assist with a humanitarian crisis on another continent. To the aliens, watching this unfold was like witnessing a magic trick that defied all logic. Within 72 hours, 250,000 soldiers, along with their equipment, vehicles, and supplies, were moving across an entire ocean as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "This cannot be their full capability," Veltar transmitted to his commander, his bioelectrical pulses crackling with disbelief. "They are treating this massive deployment as routine logistics." Thekval observed the operation through his compound eyes, each lens focusing on a different aspect of the impossible coordination below. Cargo aircraft larger than hegemony battleships lifted off from bases across America every few minutes. Naval vessels the size of small cities carried entire armored divisions. Their logistics alone required computational power that matched their most advanced military computers. "They mobilized more troops in 3 days than we used to conquer the Vorthan system," Morden whispered, referencing one of their most challenging previous campaigns. In the war room buried beneath Seoul, Colonel Wu Jin monitored the American deployment with professional interest. The massive screens around him displayed real-time logistics information, flight paths, cargo manifests, deployment schedules, all coordinated with the precision of a symphony orchestra. "Captain Mi Young, what's the current status of the American deployment?" he asked, sipping his coffee as if discussing the weather. Mi Young consulted her displays, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Sir, they're ahead of schedule. The 82nd Airborne Division is already established in the theater. The 1st Armored Division should be fully deployed within 48 hours. Total deployment time, 6 days for 250,000 personnel." To the humans, this was simply efficient military logistics. To the aliens, it was a demonstration of power that redefined their understanding of what pre-spaceflight civilizations could achieve. Veltar continued his analysis of human society, each discovery more alarming than the last. Human children began learning competitive sports that developed hand-eye coordination perfect for combat. Their teenagers participated in military-style training programs disguised as outdoor education. Adults maintained physical fitness through activities that built strength and endurance ideal for warfare. Even human entertainment supported military readiness. Their movies glorified combat and heroism. Their video games trained reflexes and tactical thinking. Their literature celebrated warriors and battles. It was as if their entire culture was designed to prepare every citizen for eventual warfare. "Commander, Thekval," Veltar reported, his voice carrying undertones of barely controlled panic. Human society is unlike anything in our databases. They have weaponized their entire civilization. The alien commander's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed this information. Explain. Every aspect of human society contributes to their military potential. Their education system includes physical fitness programs that could train soldiers. Their manufacturing sector can convert to weapons production within months. Their transportation networks can move entire armies across continents. Their communication systems can coordinate operations on a global scale. Veltar's analysis revealed the terrifying truth. Humans didn't just have professional armies, they had evolved their entire species around the assumption that warfare was inevitable. Every human learned basic combat skills through sports and education. Every human maintained physical fitness through daily activities. Every human understood logistics and coordination through their complex civilian society. Initial invasion. Estimates calculated 50,000 troops would be sufficient, Mordin transmitted, his bioelectrical pulses trembling with fear. Current analysis suggests Earth could field over 1 billion trained combatants if fully mobilized. The mathematics were staggering. The hegemony's total military strength across their entire galactic empire numbered approximately 10 million professional warriors. Earth alone possessed potential military strength that exceeded their entire civilization by a factor of 100. But the numbers were only part of the horror. Human industrial capacity dwarfed anything the hegemony had encountered. They produced more steel, aluminum, and advanced materials in a single year than most civilizations used in decades. Their manufacturing plants could retool for weapons production faster than the aliens could deploy invasion forces. Senior General Kyung-soo received the final intelligence briefing in the deep command bunker beneath Seoul. Major Haiwon stood at attention as she delivered her report. "Sir, alien surveillance activities have ceased entirely. All scout vessels departed Earth orbit approximately 6 hours ago. They appeared to be heading toward the outer solar system at maximum velocity." Kyung-soo nodded thoughtfully. Did they seem to understand what they had discovered? Based on their flight patterns and communication intercepts, yes, sir. They seemed terrified. Above Earth's atmosphere, Commander Thekval composed his final report to the hegemony invasion fleet. His bioneural processors worked overtime to find words adequate to describe what they had discovered. Fleet Command, this is Scout Leader. Thekval. Target designation Earth 3 requires immediate reclassification. Species demonstrates total warfare capability far exceeding hegemony strategic capacity. Recommend immediate withdrawal and permanent system quarantine. The message continued, with details that would reshape hegemony military doctrine. Earth wasn't just defended, it was a fortress world where the entire population served as potential military assets. Their civilization had evolved around perpetual military readiness, supported by industrial capacity that could arm billions of combatants. Estimated human military potential, over 1 billion trained personnel with unlimited industrial support. Hegemony victory probability, statistically impossible. Recommend Earth be classified as extreme threat, avoid all contact. The invasion fleet, which had been positioned at the edge of the solar system for weeks, received the transmission with shock and disbelief. Fleet commanders who had conquered dozens of worlds read the report with growing horror. Earth wasn't just another primitive world. It was a military superpower that had achieved total warfare capability without ever leaving their home system. Within hours, the massive invasion fleet began its withdrawal from Earth's solar system. Hundreds of ships that had come to conquer instead departed in retreat, carrying warnings that would echo through alien space for generations. In the hegemony databases, Earth received a new classification: Fortress World, Species-Wide Military. Capability: Indefinite Conquest Prohibition. The system was marked with warnings that would prevent any future alien empire from making the same mistake. On Earth, life continued normally. The brief alien visit had been monitored by intelligence agencies, analyzed by military experts, and filed away in classified archives. Most humans never knew that visitors from another world had spent weeks studying their planet, preparing for invasion, only to flee in terror. Humanity remained blissfully unaware that they had achieved the ultimate military victory, winning a war that never began simply by being themselves. The aliens had arrived as conquerors and departed as refugees, carrying warnings that would protect Earth from alien invasion for countless generations to come. The scout ships engaged their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the depths of space, leaving behind a world that had unknowingly redefined what it meant to be a military power in the galaxy. They end